Coming up with a main character for a new book is probably my favorite part of writing altogether. In this video, I hope to build a checklist with you in terms of building a character from scratch and keeping it as concise but effective as possible. So the first thing is the basics of your character, the bio of your character. That includes things like the name, the gender, maybe sexuality if it's something you want to include. This part of your planning is something you can always come back to, but I usually do come up with a comprehensive bio beforehand, and it's something I don't think I revisit often. Usually things that we plan in this part don't even come up in the story, but it's good to have those things in mind as a writer as you're speaking in this person's voice or narrative. Number 2 is the primary goal of your main character. Now, this may seem quite obvious, but there are different things to help support this. Now that your story has kickstarted, what does your character want from all of this? What is their primary goal that drives them and motivates them throughout the entire story? Keep in mind the tone and the personality of the character so that they're not acting out of character. It's quite easy to displace the character's own personality and replace it with our own, and often speak from a perspective that is our own and not the character's, and readers can really catch up onto this. Now that the character knows what they want, how do they plan on achieving this? The way that the character acts does reflect on their personality, so that's something else to keep in mind. When coming up with the backstory of your character, you don't have to go into too much detail. I think that we don't bring in that many details into the story itself. However, for yourself, writing from that point of view, understanding your character, it's quite important. And you can come up with things that happened more recently. For example, if you're writing about a father who's going through a messy divorce or is already divorced, for example, and you don't want to concentrate on the divorce within the story, you can bring up certain things later down in the story to make your character more relatable, more memorable. For example, what series of events or things in his personality led to him being divorced and being in this position. You can bring up details slowly throughout the story, essentially sprinkling them across chapters so we're not ambushed with too many details. I think that this aspect really does bring closeness between the reader and the character, make them more relatable and realistic, and we can kind of understand your character a bit more. Something else worth going into while planning your main characters are their quirks and their flaws. Just like in real life, people aren't perfect, actually far from perfect, and everyone has something about them that people around them might find endearing or just plain annoying. But at the end of the day, it makes us human, and I think that bringing these aspects to your characters really does bring dimension to them. Your character's behavior and actions will speak far louder than any kind of description that you could write. Behavior and actions really do reflect a lot about a person, and carefully constructing these behaviors will reflect more about their inner personality, the person that they really are, to your reader. The last thing in this list is the character arc. Personally speaking, I feel like this is the most difficult thing to imagine for your character because there's so many things that could happen along the way. But it is something worth noting because you don't want a stagnant character. You don't want them to be in the same exact spot that they were at the beginning of the story. Ask yourself questions like, what events will you bring to your story that will help them evolve into this person? Your character doesn't have to turn into a completely different person at the end. It's not realistic, but your character can change in ways by maybe having a new relationship or developing a new perspective as a result of events in the story. The great thing about having a checklist or somewhere to brainstorm all of these ideas is that as you go along with your story, which often takes so much time, like maybe a month later, you could always come back to those places and refresh your memory a little. Of course, everyone has their own methods and ways that they go about these kind of things. So do feel free to leave down your own experiences and your own methods down in the comments below, and leave it open for other people to read because it's a process and we're all learning from each other. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.